Hey members, here's the long-awaited much-ado video about the essay portion of the SAT ACT standardized tests. Okay, this is probably going to be one of the most important videos that I do because this portion of the test is really an assessment of a child's ability to think critically and analyze a piece of text, whereas the other ones were a little bit easier in that all they had to do was choose a multiple choice answer. All of the analysis is going to come from them and it's going to have to be written down. So this is going to test not only their ability to analyze and think critically, but it's also going to test their organizational skills because what they think and what they analyze is going to have to be put down on a piece of paper, and the structure of the paper is paramount, right? Lots of times, in my experience with students, right, the structure is one of the things that they have the most trouble with, and if your structure is not sound, then you're not going to have a sound argument or analysis for that matter. Okay, so what I want to do is I want to swing over here and show you just very quickly a little chart that I've made to show you the differences so that it's tangible and that you can see it. The difference between the SAT test of the past and the present. Okay, my head's gonna have to be on the front here for a little bit. Okay, so what we have here is I just wrote before, and it says where before you were given a piece of text, and what you needed to do was you needed to take a position, right? Take a position on a piece of text or an argument that was presented in the text, or an argument that they gave you, or not an argument, but a prompt. Maybe they would have given you a prompt about something, for example, maybe global warming. Some critics say that global warming is one of the biggest problems that we face as a planet, whereas some people see it as a hoax. And what they would do is say, oh well, in an essay, I want you to tell me what position you take. Do you think it is a hoax, or do you think it is real and it is a serious problem facing our planet? And what steps should we take in order to find a solution to that? That would have been some kind of essay of the past on the SAT test, right? Whereas now, they're not asking you to take a position. What they're doing now is they're having you analyze an argument. It's going to be argument analysis, okay? So what I've done here is I've taken the liberty of, and this is something that I got off the internet, right? I took this from an SAT website, an accredited SAT website, where they give you examples of prompts or essays on that were present on the past SAT tests, like 2015 or something like that, yeah, or something that would be what they would put, right? So kind of an example, right? It's a test prep, like PSAT stuff, right? So basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to walk you through one of these essays, one of these prompts, and show you what are the differences between what you would have done before when you had to take a position on an argument and what you would do now where you have to analyze an argument, okay? So basically this is from, and I'll post this, I'll attach this to the post where I post this video. This is taken from an essay, an article written by Peter S. Goodman, and basically this is just about journalism and social media, the relationship between journalism, traditional journalism, and social media, and how traditional journalism is kind of being threatened by social media. Okay, so what I've done here is I've written the topic of the essay, this prompt that I found on the internet. So I'll just go ahead and read it to you. It says, the use and role of social media as a medium through which foreign news is currently being dissipated and its effect on traditional journalism. Now, this is just a summation of the article that I read that was given to me on that PSAT website, right? The kids are gonna have to be responsible for reading a very long article, right? And then they're going to be asked to analyze how that author supported his argument, how he presented his argument, and go through and talk about the different ways in how he presented his argument and gave facts to support what he or she was saying throughout the passage. So, and like I said, this is just a summation of that. So you guys, you can go ahead and read through it, but just for the purposes of the video, I just showed you what the essay was talking about. Right? So, okay, the most important component to any piece of writing, any composition, is going to be a thesis, right? And a thesis, it will be different for each one of these types of writing. Okay, so. Whereas for the, and I've written it out here, a position essay, where it asks you to take a position on any kind of subject, okay, that you will need to rely on self-articulation. You need to rely on self-articulation in both types of essays, but this one more so in that you're taking a position, you're taking a stance on something. So you're going to have to articulate whether or not you agree with that thing, and you're going to have to give reasons as to why you agree or disagree. So you're going to have to be able to articulate your ideas in that fashion, okay? So, and every thesis is basically made up of these three things. This is the easiest way that you can remember to write a thesis. Right? Basically, a thesis is your opinion on the subject, right? What you have to say about a given topic or subject. So, the best way to write a thesis is to think about three different things that you're going to have to present your thesis. Three kinds of evidences that you're going to have to use to communicate your thesis, right? In this example, in a position essay or persuasive paper, right? Those three things are facts, excuse me, and statistics, anecdotes, and counter arguments, right? Anecdote is just like personal experience, stories that you can share that support your claim or your argument, right? Now, that's why I put these three things in a square under thesis, because they're going to be the same for each type of paper, but the way you present them is going to be different, right? So let's go ahead and start with the position paper. So for this topic, okay, talking about social media, and basically Peter S. Goodman is saying how current day contemporary social media kind of threatens traditional journalism, because anybody could post anything on social media taking a stance on any kind of world, and this is particularly about foreign news, right? So anybody can post anything on social media about a kind of a foreign news event, right? And that information, that post, and the way in which they see it, it could be subjective, right? And he argues that traditional journalism is always objective, it should always be objective to give people the fair view of what it is that they're talking about, the event that they're talking about, right? That's one of the how can I say it? One of the what's the word I'm looking for? The cruxes of traditional journalism. It has to be objective to share both sides. It can't be subjective. And that was one of the things that he argues that one of the faults of social media. Since anybody can post anything, it's not really professional. They don't have the same experience that those journalists do who have to go into those situations and report what's going on, because they're far removed from that. They could just be somebody in the house and just be an average Joe. So they don't have the professionalism and the training, and also they don't have the training to be as subjective as a journalist who's been doing this for maybe 20 plus, 30 plus years has. And that was one of his arguments, right? So basically, I just took the summary of what it's about, which is what I had just said, okay? And I've mapped out three different, how can I say this, points of the thesis, right? Parts of the thesis that the writer would use to kind of construct his or her composition, his or her paper, right? And they're going to be the same for each side, but the way in which you approach it, like I said before, is going to be a lot different, okay? So facts and statistics for a position essay, you might say something like this, okay? More than 85% of people nowadays have an account on any given social media platform, right? That could be anything from YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat. All of those are social media platforms, right? And this is just a percentage of like current day people that, and actually I'm not sure if this is right. This is just a statistic that I made up, right? But it would be something like this. I'm pretty sure. I'm willing to bet that that's actually true, and the number might be higher. This would be something. This would be a fact or statistic that you would give in a position essay in your thesis, right? To open up the argument, the subject, what you're talking about, right? So We're saying that so many people have accounts on any given social media platform. It doesn't matter what you're talking about. We know that this tells everybody that, okay, social media is very pervasive in our society today, right? An anecdote that could follow something like that would be I myself, along with several of my friends, and actually I forgot some punctuation here, I count myself, along with several of my friends, have used the platform as a device to reach hundreds of people when organizing a charity. Now that's anecdotal. That's kind of like personal information, right? Personal experience that you use to get your point across in the paper, right? And that's one of the best ways when writing a position paper or a persuasive paper is to kind of convince people or articulate your position on a topic, right? Since you've done that and you found that an effective way of reaching hundreds of people, it's obvious in what direction this paper is going. This paper is going to be going towards the position of social media as a positive thing for foreign news, the dissipation of foreign news in the United States. Now, this particular anecdotal piece of information has nothing to do with foreign news, but like I said before, it opens up the stage for what you're talking about. And after each one of these points, these 3 points, you can simply split up like this, okay, as 1, like I said before, is 3 of them, 2, and counter arguments 3. Now, in any essay, the basic structure of an essay is going to be your introduction paragraph, right? 3 body paragraphs and a conclusion paragraph, right? So what you can do is each one of these can be a body paragraph, and a body paragraph is really the meat and potatoes of your essay. It's where you do most of your arguing, and where you present most of your arguments and you present your evidence for those arguments, right? So each of these is going to be maybe the topic sentence of each of your 3 body paragraphs. So you're going to have to go on and explain, give evidence for the statements that you made. Okay, talking about 85% of people nowadays have an account on any given social media platform. You go on to talk about what kind of different platforms those are, what the function and the purpose of those platforms are, right? Just to kind of open up the stage and to give the reader an idea of how important social media is in our day and age today, right? This one here, the personal anecdotal information, is going to be where you, like I said before, this has nothing to do with the topic on foreign news, right? But it's also giving the reader an idea of how many people social media can reach, how pervasive it is in our society. And from then, you would kind of present some more arguments and say some more things that give the reader an idea of how important social media is and how effective it is in the dissemination of information, right? Now, the third point I have is going to be what you could possibly do in your 3rd body paragraph. In every good argumentative position essay, you're not going to just want to present the good things about any given position. You're going to always want to present the good things, but you also want to mix it up to be well-rounded and do mention a negative aspect of the argument or position that you're taking. And this is where the counter-argument comes in, right? Okay, so we said that social media is an effective platform, or effective medium to reach millions of people, right? And that's a positive thing. If you're spreading a positive message, like a charity, that's going to be a good thing, right? But there is a negative component to that, right? And that's going to be presented in the counter argument, which is, despite its pros, social media can be a breeding ground for false advertisement and misinformation. So some of the things that you see on social media aren't always true, right? It can be very egregious information. It can also be negative information. It can also be, whereas you can use it for something positive, it can also be used to disseminate a very negative message, right? So social media is not all good. There is some good to it, but it's not all good. And it's important when you're making a position essay that you mention that, okay? Now, moving on to the analytic essay. Now, this is what they would have asked you to do before when I took the SAT, but it's different now. Whereas this is I won't say this is really easy. I would say that it's easier than an analytic essay. And I think the people who have changed it, they kind of consider that, and they want to kind of not necessarily in gender, but they want to see, they want to weed out who the really gifted and the really analytic and critical thinkers from the people who can just say, oh, who can present an argument or an opinion, right? Everybody has an opinion. They're like elbows. Everybody has it. So it doesn't really do much good to see, I guess, how somebody presents an argument and an opinion and gives evidence for that, right? We want to go deeper. We want to dig deeper. We want to see how the student is able to analyze the text, because in college, that's all they're going to be doing. They're going to be analyzing text. The professors are going to give them text, and they're going to have to analyze the text and see how the author presents an argument, and if it's effective or if it's not. And then from there, maybe they can an open discussion will be elicited where they can share their opinions about said author and that author's analysis of any given topic, right? So moving on, we're going to move on to the analytic essay. Now, all of these are the same. I'm going to have facts and statistics and a counter argument over here. The reason I'm not going to have any anecdotal information is because in the article, Peter S. Goodman doesn't really give any anecdotal information, right? He doesn't give any personal information per se, right? It's mostly facts and statistics, counter arguments, and I wouldn't say that there's absolutely no anecdotal information, but it's not from his personal experience. It's from personal experience that he's seen, things that he's seen, and things that he has observed in his given discourse, which is journalism, right? Okay, so the first thing, right, whereas here I opened up my essay by talking about the pervasiveness of social media. Here I need to analyze whether or not Peter S. Goodman presented what he wanted to say in a very good manner. It's kind of like I'm his teacher, right? You're looking at it from kind of a professorial standpoint, writing your essay from that kind of standpoint, seeing whether or not the author did a good job at presenting his arguments, right? So, and that is the topic, the basic summation that I've written up here, right? I'm going to analyze how he does this in the article that I've just read, okay? So, for my opening topic sentence of my first body paragraph, I have something that would be to the effect of, Peter S. Goodman effectively communicates the threatened state of modern day journalism with the statistic from the American Journalism Review, counter quotations, the space devoted to foreign news has shrunk by 53% over the previous quarter century. And I have forgotten to put my end quotation there. Now that's one of the statistics given in the article, right? And actually, Peter S. Goodman does open up it's not necessarily at the beginning of his essay. What he does is he opens up the floor for what it is he's going to talk about, right? Journalism, right? And social media. And you don't really see a connection between those two until he starts putting it together. He starts putting that relationship and that correlation between the two together. And this is one of the first places, the first sentences in which he does that, right? He says this. He gives us a statistic, right? Part of the thesis, a good way to present your thesis through facts and statistics, right? He gives us this. The space in any given American paper over the last quarter century on foreign news has shrunk by 53%, right? That's what he's mainly concerned with is the dissipation of foreign news in journalism, right? And that has shrunk by 53% over the previous quarter century. Now, the analytical and critical thinking reader, someone who has a tendency to think critically. Now, the connection hasn't been put together. It's being put together here implicitly for the person, depending on how well you're able to think and analyze something. You will see that this is the very first part of his presentation of his argument, right? He creates the kind of like the threaten, what it is that's threatening journalism, right? And using foreign news specifically, right? Which is how it's shrunk. Now he's going to move on to tell us what has caused that, but he's not going to go straight out and say this is social media's fault, blah 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 blah. He's going to do it in a more articulate way, right? Rather than pointing the finger at something, right? Now, I didn't have any specific anecdotal information that he used because there's really not that much of it, right? It's more of observations that he's noticed. And you could use something like that as one of your body paragraphs, right? Now, the next thing that I have would be a counter argument, right? So you have to understand that in this paper, in this article that Peter S. Goodman has written, he doesn't really take a position like they would have asked you to do a number of years ago on the SAT test. He doesn't really take a position by saying, oh, only traditional journalism is legitimate and social media is not good and it's affecting traditional journalism negatively. He doesn't say anything like that. Nor does he say, oh, social media is more effective in the dissipation of information, and so it's a good thing that this statistic is actually a positive. It's a good thing. He doesn't say anything like that. What he does is he puts together. He uses both parts. He uses things from social media, and he uses things and aspects of traditional journalism to say that these two things can work off each other and they can work in harmony, but we need to be careful about certain things. And those certain things that we need to be careful about will be presented in counter arguments, which brings us to our counter argument in this example, which is notwithstanding from this point here about the shrinking of the space for foreign news in any given American paper, he praises various social media platforms as being think tanks and depots of facts and contemporary insight, right? So he doesn't say that social media is bad. He says there's a lot of good information on social media platforms, right? Now, and that information is accessible to everybody because the reader will know about social media. Chances are the person who reads this will have an account on any given social media platform, which goes back and it does say the same thing here. The same thing is being said that's being said in the position essay, but it's just not being said outright like this, right? It's saying, okay, because these social media platforms are depots and think tanks of facts and contemporary insight, we can use those facts and contemporary insight to communicate a point, to communicate something, a message. So they're not all bad, right? But the way in which he approaches that is different from the way that it would be approached in a position essay, right? He's taking a position, he's not necessarily taking a position, but he's saying the good things and the bad things about social media and the shortcomings, maybe some of the shortcomings of traditional journalism, right? So he's putting those things together, and that is really the mark of a very good, well-written article or essay on Peter S. Goodman's credit. Of course, he can do that, right? So, but for the student, they need to be able to see this, and they need to be able to put together an analytical paper wherein they kind of go ahead and map out the processes by which he does what he does, by which he provides evidence for the things that he says and the argument that he's making, right? And that will be the kind of paper that they're going to need to be able to write, right? It's going to be something like that. So it's going to be something for more of like they're going to think a good way to do that is they can imagine that they're the teacher and kind of critique the person, right? That the person, the author of the writing, which they would have to read for the essay portion of the test. Okay. Well, that's the video, guys. So I hope you liked the video. If you do like the video, be sure to like it, or please leave me a comment in the comment section of the post of this video. If you want to contact me, of course, like I always say, you can contact me at jeteducate@gmail.com, or you can shoot me a line through Facebook Messenger. Thanks, guys.